Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Chiles Startz, and I'm the owner of the Woodlands Art Gallery and Studios. And today we are visiting with Jerome Pelitera from Austin, Texas. And he is our featured artist with his show called Building Entanglement, a Small Part. So I'm very interested to find out what that means. And Jerome, I just want to welcome you to the gallery and thank you for exhibiting your wonderful, brilliant pieces.
Yes.
I'm going to be asking about your background and also how you create your work. I know that the audience will be very interested in that. So, Jerome, why don't we start off with just you just talking about your background and how long you've been working with art, and maybe how your art has evolved over the years.
Yeah. I started art at a very young age. My father was he put up signs, billboards and signage in the sign industry, and would take me to the place where people would make the signs, paint the signs, and he'd also come home with billboards, and back in those days it was paper, and we would do our whole bedroom, and let's say the circus came to town, and have the circus billboard right there in the bedroom.
Fantastic.
So it would be bright colors and just images of back then was a different system of billboards. So in watching the guys paint the letters and just how they approach the surface and the paint and the brushes and the smell, it I think that was my first real like, oh man, this is cool. I want to do this. But then later on, I went to high school for performing and visual arts in Houston, and there was one thing that was driven. I mean, they did teach academics, but in art history, but most of it was find your art and do it, and then kind of steer you in a way of refining what you want to do. After graduating from high school, I went to the San Francisco Art Institute, which at the time was in the 80s, and everybody was saying, oh, you have to go to New York. There's Basquiat is going on, and all these graffiti artists, and you got to go there. You'll fit right in. And I really felt like I need to go further west. So I went to San Francisco, and the painters there were of a caliber and a certain aesthetic of coming from the Beat generation and expressionism. Rothko taught there, Clifford Still, Diebenkorn, the whole thing of putting paint on like you're frosting a cake, So everything was big, and big brushes and big strokes and being very expressionist. It was more of not an academy, it was more of an institute. So it was always driven in that you don't copy a style or an aesthetic, you make it your aesthetic, make it yours. You don't say, oh, that looks like this or like that. You want to break those down and go forward with art. You try to have an image that you can not seen before, or an approach that's not been done before. But you always need history, because you can't go forward without history. But every little step builds to something new. And so my thing was always to really try to push to be original and not always think about pleasing everybody or everything, but just trying to push forward with art as a language. But that's my background. That's basically where I come from.
Well, let's talk about the title.
Oh yeah. It just has to do with, you know, I think making these pieces and just how they come about, um, and sometimes it's psychological as well as physical. They're architectural references, and some of it is psychological in a sense. Blocks and things, hardships that we have to go through to get to where you are.
Well, of course, the word building, that can be a verb or a noun.
Yes.
And so that
Yeah.
that's very interesting, because buildings are usually rectangular of sorts.
Yeah.
Entangle, I mean, it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it all plays together, and the titles and the things that we have to get through to do what we want in our lives, to go forward.
Okay, so but you say a small part. What would a large part be?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to work on that one. They probably, uh, something like an earthquake type thing. It'd be that big.
Well, you work on paper, you do watercolor, you work with acrylics, you do mixed media. Can you talk about the different media that you work with?
The watercolor is really something I just find a more intimate and almost like a drawing. You're more, I don't know, closer to it. Where the painting, it seems like it's very exterior, going forward, or extrovert part of it, where the watercolor is more internal. And that's the only way I can kind of describe it. The painting is out there, where the watercolors are more internal and kind of softer, and the lines are softer, or the color's softer, and that's the only way I can kind of work on anything on paper. I mean, in my work, it just is more internal and very softer in my mind, where the paintings are more external, the external part of my personality, or that's how I can describe it the best.
I recently took a little workshop on printmaking, and like a monoprint will be the most vivid, and then you do the ghost print, and so it's almost like this is the print, and then the watercolor is like the ghost print.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's
it's still
true.
There, but it's very subtle and soft,
intimate, more intimate.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you also do this 3-dimensional artwork. We talked about that at our reception, and you want to talk about those a little bit?
Well, those are interesting. It's more collage type thing, and it's working with different mediums, and I'm trying to get messages in those that are more external, that people can relate to more. But working on them, I can't say I have a definitive thing right now, but it is something I'm working on. And they're big. They're really big, so we'll see how they turn out.
Well, and you also do art that's not confined to the structure of a rectangle or a square, too.
Yeah.
In fact, we sold a piece last night that was definitely not one of those.
Yeah, right. I think that that's another thing that I'll be working more on is leaving the picture frame behind and try to push forward on things that are more they'll be outlined on their own and not really in the square per se. But yeah, yeah.
So it sounds like you'll be working more bigger.
Bigger, yes, and that's where the maybe the larger entanglement is.
Yeah,
The larger,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And you'd be limited with your watercolor because watercolor paper is only so big.
So big, yeah.
Unless you manipulate that in a way to allow it to be larger.
Yeah, I've used watercolors in a way that I have literally cut them and collaged them. And I have several pieces that I've done like that. Collage is a really big part of me solving the problems when I look at things or trying to get the message out, because it'll help me maybe get rid of the waste and kind of just go to the message that I'm trying to get to. And sometimes it's layering. It's the layering that I like. It's the layering. It's just building up that layer and show that little bit of a struggle to get to that point where I'm at. But yeah.
Well, it's interesting to hear that your original exposure to art was with the billboards and that and that's very the illustration.
Yeah.
And you didn't go that direction.
No.
You went. Did you ever do realistic representational art?
No, and I never went to an academy for that. The two schools I went to, really, it wasn't commercial in the sense of making art and making a vocation or try. I'd have to say that most of it was, and it's was a socialist kind of thing of it. Make it for humanity, or make it for people to appreciate.
Be a starving artist.
Be a starving artist. Yes, be a starving artist. Yeah, struggle and then still make your work, and be humble. And it wasn't about merchandise and fame and all of that. It just, at that time, that was, it was struggling and to express yourself, and that's it.
Now you mentioned that again last night at the reception that you're going to be working on this piece with vinyl. It's going to be an outdoor piece.
Yeah.
Now that I know that you did, your exposure was with billboards, that was all outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's full circle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's funny. It's just you come through with patterns and things that you're not thinking about, but they just naturally come to you. And I don't know where, trying to put it together and why or how come.
Okay, so Jerome, if you were talking to a young creative artist, do you have any advice for them?
I would say use the best art material you can get your hands on. Do it consistently. Do what you want to do. Don't think about, oh, this person's doing this and they're getting adulation from it. Just come from a sincere part of your soul and your spirit, that's what you want to do and that's what you want to make. Don't think about styles or aesthetics. That just do your thing and be consistent and just keep at it. And that's what I would say.
Well, Jerome, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experience. It's a fascinating story. And I want to thank you all for joining us too. Again, I'm Emily Chiles Startz. This is the Woodlands Art Gallery and Studios in the Woodlands, Texas. Thanks again for watching.